Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava ki Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Jai Om Viṣṇu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudarashi Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Viṣṇu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudarashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakti Vinay ki jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Kṛṣṇa. May want to be careful about that. Putting Tulsi in here. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Maybe I'll just leave my body and go back to Godhead with Tulsi water, Tulsi and Ganges water in my throat, and the Bhagavatam. Yeah. You got me with a tulsi leaf. Maybe it's a hint. Okay, so this morning, let's see if this is the marker. We're in the 7th canto, 14th chapter, Ideal Family Life. This is text 39. Text 39. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Drishtva tesam mito narinam. Okay. Get closer here. Nrinam. It's long. The R is long. Oh, also. Nrinam. Okay. Is it fixed in what you have there? Okay. Let me see here. Let me just break this up. Oh, okay. Avagyanat matam nripa tridharishu harer archa kriyayai kavivi krita. Oh, they're long. Okay. Dvishtva te samato nrinam avagyatat matam nripa tridadishu harir archa kriyayai kavibi krita. Drishtva te samato nrinam avagyatnat matam nripa tridadishu harir archa kriyayai kavibi krita. Drishtva te samato nrinam avagyanat matam nripa tridadishu harir archa kriyayai kavibi krita. Three of you. Tam nipa. Abhagyatmatam nipa. Okay, word for word. Drishtva, after practically seeing, Tisam, among the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, Mitaha, mutually, Nrinam, of human society, Avagyana Atmanam, the mutually disrespectful behavior, Nripa, O king, Tretā-adishu, beginning from Tretā-yuga, Hare, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Archa, the deity worship in the temple, Kriyayai, for the purpose of introducing the method of worship, Kavibihi, by learned persons, Krita, has been done. Translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada. My dear king, when great sages and saintly persons saw mutually disrespectful dealings at the beginning of Tretā-yuga, deity worship in the temple was introduced with all paraphernalia. Purport. As it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 3rd chapter, 52nd verse, Krite yadyayato Viṣṇum Tretayam yatato mukhahi Dvāpare-parichayayam Kalautadhari kirtanat. Whatever result was one obtained in Satya-yuga by meditating on Viṣṇu, in Tretā-yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dvāpara-yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, one can also obtain in Kali-yuga simply by chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mahā-mantra. In Satya-yuga, every person was spiritually advanced and there was no envy between great personalities. Gradually, however, because of material contamination with the advance of the ages, disrespectful dealings appeared even among Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Actually, an advanced Vaishnava is to be respected more than Viṣṇu, as stated in the Padma Purana, Aradhanam sarvesham Viṣṇuradhanam param. Of all kinds of worship, worship Lord Viṣṇu is the best. Tasmat paratam devi tadiyanam samacharam. And recommended more than worship of Viṣṇu is worship of the Vaishnava. Formerly, all activities were performed in connection with Viṣṇu. But after Satya-yuga, there were symptoms of disrespectful dealings among Vaishnavas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that a Vaishnava is he who has helped others become Vaishnavas. An example of one who has converted many others into Vaishnavas is Narada Muni. A powerful Vaishnava who has converted others into Vaishnavas is to be worshipped, but because of material contamination, sometimes such an exalted Vaishnava is disrespected by other minor Vaishnavas. When great saintly persons saw this contamination, they introduced worship of the deity in the temple. This began in Tretā-yuga and was especially prominent in Dvāpara-yuga, Dvāpare-parichayayam. But in Kali-yuga, worship of the deity is being neglected. Therefore, chanting of the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra is more powerful than deity worship. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set a practical example that he did not establish any temples or deities, but he profusely introduced the Sankirtan movement. Therefore, Krishna consciousness preachers should give more stress to the Sankirtan movement, especially by distributing transcendental literature more and more. This helps the Sankirtan movement. Whenever there is a possibility to worship the deity, we may establish many centers, but generally we should give more stress to the distribution of transcendental literature, for this will be more effective in converting people to Krishna consciousness. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto 2nd Chapter 47th Verse, Acharyam eva hareye pujam ya shadaya hite. Natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakrita smritaha. A person who is very faithfully engaged in worship of the deity in the temple, but does not know how to behave toward devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta or kanishta adhikari. A prakrita devotee or neophyte devotee is still on the material platform. He certainly engages in worshiping the deity, but he cannot appreciate the activities of a pure devotee. It has actually been seen that even an authorized devotee who is engaged in the service of the Lord by preaching the mission of Krishna consciousness is sometimes criticized by neophyte devotees. What's Srila Prabhupada referring to here? Who is Srila Prabhupada referring to here? Himself. Right? This is purport Prabhupada's talking about. He brings it up in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So we'll talk a little bit about those. Such neophytes are described by Viṣṇu Chakravarti Thakur, Sarva Prani Samanana Samarthanam Avagya Sparda Matam Tu Bhagavat Pratimaiva Patram Yaha. For those who cannot properly appreciate the activities of authorized devotees, deity worship is the only way for spiritual advancement. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchalila 7:11, it is clearly said, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pavartana. Without being authorized by Krishna, one cannot preach the holy name of the Lord throughout the entire world. Nevertheless, a devotee who does so is criticized by neophyte devotees, Kanishta Adhikaris, who are on the lower stages of devotional service. For them, deity worship is strongly recommended. Okay. Om Agyan Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksulan Minidam Dina Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Swapadandikam Panchakalpadrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Kṛṣṇa Hare Kṛṣṇa Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So let me just wash down the last bits of that tulsi leaf. Excuse me. So Prabhupada refers to Bhaktivinoda Thakur as saying that Vaishnav, how do you know one's an advanced Vaishnav? How do you know? Is it how big their tilak is? How about the size of the... How straight it is? Okay. How about the size of their Brahman thread? Because some Brahmins, they're very thin threads. Some of these really big ones, you know. Big Brahman. Right. So, I mean, how do you know? How do you know someone's... maybe they talk very eloquently. Maybe they got a big border on their dhoti. Right. This one devotee comedian said, the borders are getting so big on our dhotis, we're going to need customs officials, like that, immigration, because the borders are getting so big on our dhotis. So how do you know? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, very simple. Advanced devotees are those who made other devotees. That's Vaishnava. Vaishnava, because the Vaishnava is compassionate. It's a preacher trying to deliver the fallen souls, patita pavana. And that's how you know a great devotee. It's the number of devotees they're making and their preaching endeavors. So, and Prabhupada uses many times the example of Narada Muni. He's always appearing in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam delivering many varieties of conditioned souls, from kings to demons to hunters to, it just goes on and on and on and on. He's such an expert preacher. He can, he has that ability. Why? Because he's seeing everyone as spirit soul, and he's empowered by Krishna to know exactly how to preach to everyone. That's we were describing that actually last Tuesday in the readings about Srila Prabhupada and Bhishma. Why did but Bhishma was able, great sages, powerful personalities came from all over the universe to see his passing. And because he was a self-realized soul, he was actually able to satisfy everyone by his words and completely dissolve feelings of envy and feelings of sectarianism and my this, my that, and you have your idea, I have my idea. Symptom in Kali-yuga is even if you defeat someone in an argument, they don't accept it. They just walk away. Well, they start a podcast and go at it. Whereas Prabhupada says in previous times, civilized societies, if you had a philosophical discussion with someone, or theological, and you defeated them, they actually became your disciple. They even had pieces of paper. You signed off. There's a different story. We can go on that, digress in that direction if you like, but we don't have much time, about Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Digbijai. But that was the understanding of someone defeated you, you accepted defeat, right? So that's not so much in this day and age. But someone who's so Krishna conscious, you feel okay. You know, if you're a gentleman or a lady or whatever, sane, someone has a better idea, you take it. You take it. So this is the symptoms of very, very great devotees in their preaching. They're able to preach to the greatest number, a wider variety of people, and appeal to them and move their heart. So what's being described here is a historical account of the introduction of temple worship, beginning in Tretā-yuga and becoming very prominent in the last stage, the Dvāpara-yuga. There's the big temples and elaborate deity worship as the Yuga Dharma, most recommended in that particular day and age. But as described here, the beginnings are when the great sages and saintly persons who prescribe this medicine for the conditioned soul, they started to see disrespectful dealings. Now Prabhupada says in the verse, it just says disrespectful dealings, but Prabhupada elaborates that it's disrespectful dealings even amongst the devotees, Brahmins. They became disrespectful. And throughout the purport, Prabhupada saying that, you know, someone who is a great Vaishnava, which means someone who's preaching Krishna, sacrificing everything and preaching Krishna consciousness, should be offered all respect, even more so than Viṣṇu himself. You have a question? Just stretching. I know. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Okay. And Prabhupada quotes the verse by Lord Shiva, speaking to Devi, Parvati, his wife, saying, you know, of all kinds of worship, because people want to, India, they love worshiping all kinds of things. So one person told me they saw a shrine to Ganapati, and they had a lot of little Ganeshas in there, and they all had cricket outfits on, and they're worshiping Ganesh for winning a cricket game, like that. So they worship anything, you know, they worship, you know. But that's not the point. It's who you worship. It's not just worshiping. Because isn't that I get it backwards so many times. The yatapat, yatamat, yatapat. Mat. Mind. Whatever's in your mind, you follow that path. So people think of so many different types of worship and so on. Yatamat, tatapat. So, but Lord Shiva is saying, no, there is a difference. It makes a difference who you worship. And he's saying, of all the worship, there's so much worship prescribed in the Vedic literatures, but the best is worship of Viṣṇu. But even better than that, even better than the best, is worship of the Vaishnava, the Lord's devotees, Tadiyanam, those who are dear to the Lord. So they should be offered all respect. they're the ones carrying Krishna in this material world. Where is Krishna to be found in this world? It's in the hearts of the great devotees. So when they are disrespected, there's problems. There's problems. And so what to do about that? That's a contamination in the heart. The desire to criticize others, especially devotees. In fact, it's referred to as an elephant. Not just an ordinary elephant, but a mad elephant. I mean, elephants in themselves. Can you imagine if an elephant just walked in here? I was visiting, they brought me on a tour of South India once. I was in Chennai, and they brought me to some place to show that they had white people in the Hare Kṛṣṇa movement because they needed them to sign off on a road. Anyways, we stopped at this one temple early in the morning for darshan, and sure enough, they brought in a cow, and then they brought in an elephant right in front of the deities. So we'd have to make that door a little bit bigger. But yeah, I think it was about a teenager. It wasn't too big. But, there you go, And it's like, heaven help the brahmacharis there to clean up after that. But right there in front of the deities, it's just the curtains open, and there was a cow, and there was an elephant, and there were the devotees, and Tulsi, and, it was auspicious, adibas. So, elephant's pretty amazing. But when you have a mad elephant, you got some problems, big problems. So, Vaishnava aparad is hatimata, mad elephant, because it just... Killed a mouse? Wow. What was he upset about? Okay. Okay. Well, that's a lesson to be learned. If you're in charge of taking care of an elephant, you better do it nicely. Yeah. There's a Padayatra story. Maybe you heard this one also. I was told this story. And the Padayatra goes every year, all the way for many, 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 many months. And there was one place they came to, and this woman or something, the house, and they disrespected the elephant on Padayatra. Like, hit it or something like that, get away. And then 1 year later, came back to the same place and got all upset and ripped up all their trees and things like that. Remembered that place and how it was hurt. Elephants never forget. So, anyways. So, the point is, it's a very, very dangerous contamination. And why do we criticize people anyways? Why do we? Where does that come from? The desire to criticize others. Yeah. Envy of others. And to make others look less than you criticize them like that. So the desire to be number one, Ishwaraham aham bhogi, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, it's there in the heart, and we criticize, but we really shouldn't. A Vaishnava says is respectful even to a ant, or aunt, not aunt. Well, aunt also, you're respectful to your aunt, but aunt. Ant. Right. So even why? Because you see, that's the spirit soul. It's Krishna's eternal devotee. Somehow or other he's in an ant body. Let me actually give him a little bit of sugar. Give him a little prasadam buzz, because ants like sugar, because they like to be intoxicated most of the time. Do you know that? That's why they like the sugar. Prabhupada said they love intoxication. So I guess all these people on Garnet, you know where they're going in the next life? They're all going to be ants here at the Hare Kṛṣṇa temple getting mahaprasadam. So, but respectful to even an ant, right? Most people, they say ant, they go, brush it away or stomp on it or whatever, don't even think about it. But respectful to even an ant, because that's a devotee. That's a spirit soul. It's dear to, it's someone who's very dear to, do you know the soul in that ant body is dear to Krishna as you are to him? You're on the same level in Krishna's eyes, spiritually. And even all the residents in the spiritual world. Because Krishna says, I'm equal to all living entities, they're all my devotees, just due to circumstances, someone's in a difficult situation, so that's the devotee's vision. But when we shift out of that vision into the material vision, then we all immediately start comparing ourselves. This is one of the complaints that Prahlad Maharaj had about going to school. Do your kids complain? Oh, they're good. Homeschooling. Do they still complain about homeschooling? Okay. But kids complain about school. Oh, this, that. So Prahlad had a good complaint. He said, I'm going to school, but all they do is teach me about finding out who this person's my friend, this person's my enemy. All these different dualities. Your friend, enemy, political enemy, this, that, how to conquer and divide, and how to create dissension in the enemy's camp, all this political stuff. And he said, but I just see everyone as devotees. He said, why do I want to see things like that? Oh, this person's my enemy. Oh, this person's my friend. He said, I don't see that. I just don't see that. So he flunked. He didn't do very good in demon school. In fact, he did horrible. He flunked right out of that because he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. I just can't see that this person, that you're my friend and you're my enemy. I can't see that. So it's interesting. So I have to catch ourselves. That's when we have to catch ourselves before we start. Our radar locks into a Vaishnav. You shouldn't do that. If you're going to be envious of someone, pick someone else, right? But don't pick a Vaishnav or Vaishnavi. It just ruins everything. So the point being here is the sages understanding, seeing these symptoms, to keeping an eye on things. Just like the Puranas all talk about the meeting a little over 5,000 years ago. Sutta Goswami and the sages were gathered there for one whole sandhya, right? 1,000 years. Discussing, the one thing they discussed was the age of Kali's coming, and the atmosphere is going to be like this and this and this, short-lived, unlucky, misguided. Our mind, people are just going to be a complete. Where does that term come from? Oh, best of the English editors, a basket case. Do you ever know? I mean, someone's a basket case. What does that mean? That's what that means. Okay, there we go. So more or less they said everyone in Kali-yuga is a basket case as far as spiritual life and even material life. So what are we going to do for them? What advice do we have for them? And then they explain that that's the Bhagavatam, about the worship of Viṣṇu and Krishna and ultimately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation and so on. So they're very, very kind. So in the beginning of Tretā-yuga, they saw these symptoms of mutual disrespect, even amongst the devotees and the Brahmins. So the deity worship was introduced. Deity worship is very, very purifying to the heart, if done correctly. And in fact, in our movement, Prabhupada said it runs on these two parallel tracks, the deity worship and the preaching. Deity worship keeps us pure and regulated and clean, and it gives us the strength and energy to go out and preach. And the preaching, of course, it spreads the movement, but it purifies the heart. So when you go perform your deity worship, you're also performing with a pure heart. They're interrelated. They're connected. They're dependent on each other. So, and then Prabhupada brings up this point about those who engage in deity worship. They'd be very, very careful because of the two paths, which is more important, deity worship or the Sankirtan. Specifically, book distribution. What's more important? The Sankirtan, the preaching, the spreading of Krishna consciousness, and is more appreciated by the general mass of people, that they get the books, they read, they start chanting, more so than coming to a temple. That doesn't mean the temple's not important, but for the general mass of people, they may find it difficult, especially in the West, they do find it difficult to relate to. It takes some purification of the heart. It's not that there's a problem, or we should have temples and deity worship, but the general mass of people, their heart's got to be somewhat purified before they can come and actually appreciate what's going on, and then gradually become initiated and purified and perform it themselves in their home and here. But in general, the distribution of books in the Sankirtan is the more important of the two. It should always be stressed. And Prabhupada said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself never opened any temples or established deity worship. He had those disciples do so when it's not too much of an endeavor. So many people came forward, like the temples in Vrindavan, very wealthy landowners and business people, and made it very easy. Like that, we've had different stories in our movement of struggling so hard, too hard, to open different temples and so on. You know the story about the Toronto temple? You know, when they first went there, it's the one that they have now. You see pictures. It used to be an old church or something like that, and this is back in the 70s. And Prabhupada was visiting, and they had a small place, and going on different walks with Prabhupada, showing different properties that they were thinking of getting, and they came to this one. And of course, back then, you know, just even this temple is a really small temple compared to some of the temples that are built in our movement. But back in the 70s, this was not so easy to get and pay for and so on. And there's a whole interesting story with Maharaj and how this place was paid for. And okay. But the Toronto temple, and then they came back, Prabhupada took a tour, said, this may be very difficult for us to buy and maintain. It's a headache, and you know, we're not meant for these kind of headaches and things like that. And then they went back, and then the very next morning, Prabhupada said, we should get it. And I think it was Vishwakarma, whoever it was. But Prabhupada, yesterday you said we shouldn't get it because of headache. And Prabhupada said, yes, you get a headache for Krishna. You should accept that headache and get the temple. And Prabhupada had some transcendental vision, but generally speaking, it's called over-endeavor. And one has to be very, very careful. And never at the cost of preaching. It's like, all the Sankirtan devotees, don't go on Sankirtan anymore. We need you to stay here and do deity worship. No, that's not. Yes. So that's the point. And then the last thing we'll touch on here is Prabhupada does make the references to himself. He unfortunately, or not unfortunately for them, there were god brothers and different persons in India who were very critical of Srila Prabhupada for what he was doing. But who else is preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world? There's one tape, room conversation, a morning walk, and the devotee was talking about someone in India, South India, you know, a prominent scholar or guru or something like that, was criticizing Prabhupada, and unfortunately at that time, the devotees in Japan got in trouble. That's not something I'm going to describe in any detail, but they got in trouble and got in the news. Their Sankirtan tactics, like that. But Prabhupada was saying, if he's such a great soul, as far as my movement, that's what he sees. He doesn't see the preaching all over the world. No one has ever before taken Krishna consciousness out of India and spread it all over the world. So many temples and hundreds and thousands of devotees and books going out. He says he doesn't see that. He sees, this article about Japan. So he's just saying he's like the fly. The fly likes the stool, and the bee likes the honey. So why is it that, he says, he's asking, why don't you ask him? Because there's an Indian man saying, Swamiji, I went and saw him. You know, an Indian man saying, I went to his darshan, and Prabhupada said, next time you see him, why don't you ask him, why you pick this thing? And why not that Swami Bhaktivedanta spread Krishna consciousness all over the world? What is it in your heart that you go to that and not to this? Why? Can anyone give a reason? Envy. So Prabhupada's making that point here. Spreading Krishna consciousness, of course there's going to be problems, but at least he's doing something. Prabhupada would say that sometimes also in the criticism. At least he's doing something. You say they're called Jagat Guru, and they don't even leave their village. You know, they don't even travel all over India. And somehow they became Jagat, which means the whole world, the spiritual master of the whole world, and they haven't left their village, and they're sitting there criticizing Prabhupada. Why? Nothing good can come of that. So the point is, if we have such a tendency, and we all do, because we got the material body, we have to purify ourselves. And Prabhupada is saying that's of course, there's a chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa, but that's where giving the history of the deity worship in the temple. Just performing the deity worship properly and very, very purifies the heart, like that. So it's very helpful. So it's 8:32. We can end here for comments and questions. And okay.
I went to the Acharya, Google. Originating in World War I, the term basket case originated in World War I for a soldier who had lost all 4 limbs in combat and consequently had to be carried in a litter or basket. This term was then transferred to an emotionally or mentally unstable person, and later to anything that failed to function. There you go.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu. So when someone calls you a basket case, be humble. Hare Krishna. Somehow or other. No, no.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I have a question, like what Srila Prabhupada speaks that first when person envy and criticize Vaishnavas, then better to him to engage in deity worship. And like we see, so little less people can do it, and so maybe state that to be engaged in deity worship, we should have some preliminary activity to get this deity worship. Like Srila Prabhupada, like Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada speaks that Lord Chaitanya did not establish any temple, he established Sankirtana movement. And that this Sankirtana movement purify people to be qualified to deity worship and say next level.
Well, it's a good question, as all your questions are. The point is, there are many varieties of activities to purify our hearts. In fact, there's 9 processes of devotional service, right? Different processes of devotional service and so on. So, and one does have to have some pre-qualification before they can go on the altar and worship the deity. Yes, one has to learn how to do it properly. So it's one of the many different ways of purifying the heart. Chanting purifies the heart also. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamaha davagni nivapanam. So there's so many varieties of activities to purify our heart. So Prabhupada is just making the point here that the deity worship is such a process. Like that. And I mentioned earlier, Prabhupada put these 2 together in our movement, the Bhagavad Vidhi and the Panchatiriki Vidhi. And the deity worship, he said over and over again, it's important because it keeps us clean and regulated and purified. It has a very wonderful effect on us, especially in the neophyte stage, because we're not seeing Krishna in everyone's heart. Are you? I mean, actually seeing, we understand it's there, but we can see Krishna here. So we're meant to be seeing Krishna at all times. So there's many different points to be made, how it all fits together, and it's meant to purify our heart of all these anartas, attachments and fears and contamination of the heart, if you will, which block our Krishna consciousness. They just completely block it. Just like this. I don't know if it's a good example or not, but just like we're in football season, right? Aren't we? Yeah, we're in football. So these, they call them linebackers? These big guys. Can you imagine they're blocking us. They just like big guys, like 200-300 pounds, and just like you can't get by them. So something's blocking us even more than those guys. It's and those are all the anartas in our heart. They're just blocking our Krishna. We can't get to Krishna. So, but all that gets removed by the process of devotional service. Like that. Is it good temple worship? It's always been there. It's always been there for devotees.
But also, if we see people who don't know about it, and then this preaching, like Sankirtana movement, that then they, becomes ready to change heart. because of now we see people don't want even nothing change. They happy like pigs.
Are you talking about the deity worship?
No. It's that people not even not ready to change something in their life. They very very low level.
Yes, it's true. Most people don't want to change. That's just human nature. And there's two things. That's the expertise of the preacher, is to some or other instill in them the desire to change, to be better, to be spiritual, and to revive their divine consciousness. That's the devotees. And Prabhupada said, in like a needle, out like a plow. Just get them started. Something miraculous. Krishna takes over. He's in the heart. It's not that it's impossible. Krishna can do anything he likes. Krishna's in the heart. But you just got to start it. It's like lighting a fuse. Those long fuses. You lit it. Sooner or later, Krishna consciousness is going to blow up in that person's heart, if you want to use it as whatever. It's just going to grow. Bhakti Lat the beach. That's a better example that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used. You start, it's just growing. You started it. You started it, and there's no turning back. So that's the preacher. And then people say, well, maybe I should change. Their heart becomes purified. Their intelligence becomes purified. And that's the process. And gradually we just have to keep cultivating. Means you got a plant growing, you keep watering it, taking out the weeds, cultivating, before you know it, it's fully grown and it bears its fruit or whatever. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so we should end here. All glories. Are we ending to fast or they have breakfast today? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Damodar Bhatta ki jai, Go Premanandi.